Hello everybody, so today we're going to look at how to write a TCP client in Python. So without further ado, let's begin and write TCP clients using Python. First thing we want to do is import Socket. That's the whole point. What we're doing is we're going to be using Socket to establish a remote connection to a remote host, and we're going to do that to show that you don't have to use requests. For instance, if you were in a situation where you didn't have the ability to install requests and you had to do it the hard way, this might be worth considering. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a remote host, and I'm going to use books, just need to look at my notes, I always get this wrong, books.toscrape.com. Next, so this is the site that we're going to make the connection to using our TCP client, and the port that we want to connect to, I know this because I've just checked it, is port 80 rather than 443. So next we want to create socket object. And what we'll do here is we'll just call it client. So we'll say client, sorry about spelling, equals socket.socket. This is the syntax. You can look it up on Google or anywhere. So if you use VS Code, it'll auto-complete for you, but I thought I'd do it the old school way today. Socket dot, now we have to use sock underscore stream, and that's for a TCP client. If you're using UDP, there's another argument which I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So let's connect the client to the socket. So what we've done so far is just created a socket object. So now we need to say client dot connect, and we want to connect to, we pass this as a tuple, so our host comma our port. So a socket is a combination of a IP address and a port number. What is an IP address? An IP address is a logical identifier for a network, and the port is it's a unique address within that host. Not so much an address, but a unique identifier. So you can have, rather than just be able to connect to a computer on one connection, because there are 65,000 ports, you can have 65,000 connections. Right, next. What we're going to do is, oh, it's a typo there, isn't it? Okay. So next we want to make a request, and for the request, this is very specific and it has to be this format, and it's got to be get space / http command 1.1 /r/n. After that, then you specify the host, which is the syntax for the request rather than our variable name. Then we put placeholder %s, and that is where we will in a minute pass our variable for the host, the bookstoscrape.com. So we need %s r n /r/n, and then we go our host. Once you've done this a couple of times, you'll get familiar with it. The benefit of doing this here is by doing it once, you're passing this in. So if you had a list of multiple hosts, and you could create a for loop, and this would work for all of them. You'd just be substituting our host into here, %s. Okay, so next, we need to send the request. Client.send request dot, and we need to encode it because we're passing bytes. We need to send bytes with our socket. So then once we've sent the request, we wait for a response, and the response equals client.recv, so receive, and then we specify the number of bytes. And according to documentation, will best match with hardware and network realities, the value of buffer size should be a relatively small power of 2. For example, 4096. Okay, so that's the response, and then we just want to print response, and then we need to close the connection. So here we'll say print response.decode. And what we want to see at the end of all of this is a response code 200 ideally. Then we just close the connection, so it's client.close. Oh, typo. Sorry about that. Naughty, naughty. Right, now let's save that. So this is called Socket yt.py. So now if I run it, Python 3 socket yt.py, and we've got a response, and that's pretty good. So we've got exactly what we wanted. We've got a 200 response. We've identified this server, and it's running Nginx 1.17.7. This might be useful to know. I'm not going to expand on that, but you may wish to identify a particular version that a web server is running. And there we have it. So to change that, if I wanted to go and change that to, let's say, google.com. Again. Okay, there's a redirect going on there. Let's try another one. So instead of google.com, let's put, what should we choose? Motor sport. And there we go. And there's a redirect. Was that the same one? Yes. Wow. Let's try another one, see if we can find one that hasn't got a redirect. Microsoft. There we go. And another moved permanently. Well, there we go. That is how to write a TCP client using Python. And the next thing we would want to be doing here is creating a client and a server, so you can create a connection between your target machine and you can get a response back to your, sorry, a server and a client, because then you want to be able to connect to the client and get a response from the server.